All right, ladies, let's be real. You've mastered the art of the boardroom, you've conquered every challenge your career has thrown at you, and somehow still, you find the time to hit the gym, to meal prep, and to keep them edges laid. But when it comes to relationships, let's just say the same strategies that made you a powerhouse at work aren't exactly working in your love life, right? Welcome to the Relational Reset, the podcast that is here to help high achieving women like you figure out why dating feels like a second job, but with worse benefits. I'm your host, hthompson, and together we're going to break down the patterns, the pitfalls, and yes, the delusions that might be keeping you stuck in a dating burnout. So, you would have remembered in a previous episode when I said that the point of loving someone is not always knowing how to love them, correct? Well, it means that we have to go a little bit deeper than just having love. You actually have to sit down and learn, who is this person? What is it that they desire? What is it that they need? What are the experiences that has allowed them to become the version of themselves that's sitting in front of me right now? So if you don't learn how to study how your partner receives love and the way in which they need to be receiving that love, then you're going to end up thinking that the love you believe you're giving them is enough. And what happens when what you think you're doing isn't actually having the right kind of outcome, right? You start to actually become disillusioned when they're telling you that they're not happy, right? Like, have you ever been in a situation where it's kind of like, you thought you were doing good, you thought you were studying for that test, and like you really thought that this was an A+ job, and then you get your test results back and it's like you failed. Where did I go wrong? Because what I thought I was doing isn't actually what I was achieving, right? So the problem with these kinds of intentions is that they're radically different than everything we've ever done before. So let's move deeper. Understanding the sexes. So when we get into a relationship, I think we end up mistaking that when someone loves us, they're going to act and behave in certain ways, just like the ways we would react to them, right? So for example, men mistakenly expect women to communicate and react the way men do, and women mistakenly expect men to feel, communicate, and respond the way they do, right? But what we need to know here is that there are 7 basic needs that are essential to creating a truly loving relationship, okay? So what are those needs? Love, care, understanding, respect, appreciation, and acceptance and trust, okay? Well, that might have been 8, but who's counting, right? All men and women have equal needs on all 7 points, but our primary needs differ slightly. Primary in this instance simply means that what we look for first is different between men and women. So let's take a look at it. Women tend to prioritize love, care, and understanding as their primary needs, okay? Men tend to prioritize appreciation, respect, and acceptance as a part of their primary needs, okay? So this is interesting. When it relates to men, professional ladies, I want y'all to really understand the need for men to feel appreciated. Now, notice I'm not talking about respect, okay? Because respect and appreciation are actually not the same thing. So, appreciation is what positively evaluates that what was done is actually a good thing. Respect is simply the acknowledgement that something was done in the first place. So, to say that I respect someone is just to say thank you. It's just to give them a handshake. It's just to kind of acknowledge something. But appreciation goes a little bit deeper to say that what you did has meaning. The fact that you decided to buy me a rose, that means you took time out of your busy schedule. That means you had to spend money you wasn't planning on spending to actually present that rose to me. I appreciate you. You feel that difference? See, I think a lot of times it's easy to just give respect because to respect someone doesn't always mean that you appreciate them, right? I mean, come on, we grew up in a culture where from elementary school, we had to stand up and say good morning to whatever teacher walked into our classrooms. We learned to walk into buildings and say good morning. We learn how to leave buildings and say thank you, goodbye. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are appreciative of what's really going on. So we got to understand that respect and appreciation are very different. And this is what men thrive on. Okay? The majority of men who come into my office, they often make complaints that their women just doesn't know how to appreciate them. They often complain to me and say, Harrison, man, this woman says she loves me, but every time I'm trying to do something for her, every time I'm trying to serve her, it seems like she's better off talking about what I'm getting wrong as opposed to what it is I'm actually getting right. If you want to shut down a man very quickly, tell him that what he is doing for you from the bottom of his heart ain't it. See, I get it might not be efficient in what you need it to be in that moment, but you have to find a way to show appreciation for the fact that you were considered. Okay? See, professional women, y'all understand, in the business world, there's no considerations when you don't produce results, right? Like, you're not going to get brownie points for not doing something, but this isn't business. This is your relationship. And when it comes to a relationship, you got to understand, you have to create momentum through motivation and encouragement in that man if what it is you say you want from him is a healthy, open individual, okay? So appreciation acknowledges that the value behind your actions has been received. Okay? Catch that very carefully. The value behind your actions has been received. Not what the action produced. The value behind the action has been received. So if you tell that man that you're hungry, and you don't tell him what you're hungry for, and he brings you food that he believes is what you want to eat, and it might not be what you actually want to eat, appreciation says, thank you for bringing me food. Okay? Simple. So when you appreciate a man, you tell him that what he does and you tell him that how he does it adds value to your life. Okay? Now, this is critically important to the male psyche because men identify with their actions. You will notice that any man who is out here trying to make money, who's trying to start his business, who is trying to change the level that his family is living at, he ain't gonna feel good until what he is producing with his hands starts making money. You could try to love that man, you can try to encourage that man, you could even try to motivate that man. But if he can't produce what he believes he needs to be producing, he's not going to feel like he's being the best man he could be. Okay? So when you appreciate what a man is doing with his hands, when you appreciate what a man is doing with his heart, with what he's doing with his mind, his spirit, you're telling that man that he is a valuable human being to you. Okay? So when a man feels like what he does isn't being properly appreciated, he loses motivation and becomes passive and lazy and insecure. And ladies, how many times do you feel like that man should just be a little bit more motivated, right? Like how many times do you feel like that man is just supposed to be a little bit more encouraged to get up and get to the money? Cool. But if you are that man's woman, you have to understand what role you're playing in his life. And see, I think many professional women, you're really underestimating the value of your words. You really underestimate the power behind what you're saying to that man. You know, your voice, ladies, it's a powerful tool of building up and encouragement, but it is equally as powerful as a tool to cut that man down. Okay? I don't want y'all to ever play around with the power in y'all tongue. A lot of Bahamian women I know experience this too, but it's almost like when y'all speak about things, you see it. It's like, I just talked about that thing earlier and now it's happening. I just called that person name and now they showing up. Y'all have intuitions, and with that intuition, you got to understand sometimes you see things that man can't always see. But if you start damaging that man before he sees what he needs to see, you get in the way of what it is you say you want. No one wins. So in that regard, that's men's psychology. But let's kind of dive into women's psychology for a little bit, okay? I want to talk about the female need to be honored. Proverbs 31 verses 28 through 29 says, her children stand up and call her blessed. Many women do noble things, but you are better than all others. Okay? So this is why you will find that women are very sensitive to their relationships, and they're very sensitive to being cared for or the lack thereof. And this is because of what I call open awareness. Okay? When a man is caring towards his woman, she trusts that her needs are valid and not selfish. To honor a woman, a man must learn to listen first and solve later. Fellas, if you made it this far on my podcast, listen to this piece, okay? To honor a woman, a man must learn to listen first and solve later, okay? This means, men, you can't get the respect and appreciation you're looking for until you give this woman what it is she needs, okay? Now, when I talk about female open awareness, what am I talking about? In a previous episode, I started speaking about how women have this open room, and everything about their life exists in this open room. So their finances are here, their relationship status is here, their family is here, their friends are here, their ideas about vacation is here. Women tend to see everything that's going on with their life at the same time. So if you notice, women are often more anxious. You notice women are indecisive, especially like when it comes time to eat, right? Like a lot of times fellas would ask women, like, what is it that you want to eat? And y'all all say the same thing. Child, anything. Whatever you bring home, baby, is fine. So that man brings home pizza. And the first thing you gotta ask that man is, why you bring home pizza? Lord have mercy. So you give the man permission to make an assumption on what it is you want to eat, and then you get mad when his assumption isn't what you thought it would be? Why wait and hope when communication works just as fine to stop that from being a problem? But see, this is what open awareness is. So men have to understand that when you're dealing with a woman, she does not have the ability to unhinge herself from what's affecting her. Either she's talking about what's affecting her or she's suppressing. Okay? So let's move on. Why is it that in relationships we struggle to meet each other's needs? Well, number one, awareness of the problem doesn't equal action on solving the problem. Okay? How many times do we drive around in this country and we know that there's a pothole in the road, right? And we know that this pothole shouldn't be here. And we know that somebody should do something about this pothole, but the pothole still remains even though we're driving over it every day. That's because awareness doesn't translate into action. You can know you're feeling sick and you don't take no vitamin C. You could know that you need to sleep and not seek out sleep, right? So knowing that you have a problem doesn't mean that you're going to deal with the problem. So we don't want to think that knowing is enough. Beyond awareness, there must be established value in why something is actually important, okay? Value legitimizes inconvenience as worthy, okay? So take this for a minute. If you have a valuable product that I want, and I know that I want that, the value dictates my inconvenience. Ladies, whenever you're getting into a relationship with a guy, always remember that your value is supposed to be inconvenient to him, okay? I think a lot of times we believe that value isn't supposed to be inconvenient. But just look at Rolex for an example, right? When's the last time you've seen a Rolex watch go on sale? I ain't talking about them knockoff set downtown now, okay? I'm talking about the real deal, them perpetual ones that flow and don't tick. They don't. That's because Rolex is not in the business of trying to cater to everybody. Rolex knows its value. It knows that it's not a watch, but a timepiece. And because it's a timepiece, it doesn't belong on everybody's hands. So Rolex isn't trying to cater to a new demographic. No, Rolex isn't trying to appeal to a new crowd. Rolex isn't trying to change their brand. No. Rolex remains what Rolex is because they know that their value demands inconvenience. If the food you want is all the way out west, and you live all the way out Yamacraw, past Yamacraw, you actually in the water, well, guess what? The value determines the inconvenience. So we understand that value, when you have it, it's not always supposed to be something that's easy for people to meet. There are standards to this game, okay? Value increases patience and tolerance, and it sensitizes us to the things that are related to it. So if you want to participate in healthy relationships, you have to choose to be inconvenienced by the very nature of what you love, because you don't get to choose what people's needs are, and you don't get to choose what people struggle with. Anybody ever kind of told you what it is you should and should not be struggling with? And how did that feel, right? Every time I think we are told how we should feel and we are told what it is we should be doing about what it is we feel, we kind of get this idea that we somehow can negotiate with that. but I can't even negotiate with my own needs. So what more about you, right? So the only way to solve these issues is through communication. And without communication, the relationship just starts to become a reflection of everything we're doing wrong, okay? So let's talk about that for a moment, right? Communication in relationships. I want to start off by kind of figuring out what intimacy is. Intimacy is our ability to feel close and to be in relationship, okay? That's everything about what intimacy is. Intimacy thrives on the communication of truth. So when truth cannot be respected, intimacy becomes threatened, okay? Now, there are three realizations you need to deepen your ability on to communicate successfully in relationships. Let's go through them. Realization number one, you are not me and I am not you. If you don't learn to respect that y'all are two different people, your communication will reflect that, okay? Realization number two, your experience isn't the only experience and neither is mine. Sometimes when we're going through conflicts in relationships, we like to believe that what I'm going through is what you're going through. And that's just simply not true, right? If we kind of go all the way back to 2019 and 2020, the years of COVID, right? Not everybody went through COVID in the same way. For a lot of people, COVID was a very stressful time because they were wondering about money. For a lot of people during COVID, they had to go home with people who might have been abusive. They had to stay in situations and home environments that weren't conducive to their mental and emotional health. But like on the other side of that coin, COVID for a lot of people was a chance to get more time with family. COVID was an opportunity for people to kind of discover that they had talents, like baking bread and gardening, right? Like, sure, that's 90% of us right now. So your experience is not the only one and neither is mine. Realization number three, you will always lose the fight if you make someone choose between what you're saying and their own freedom, okay? Never, ever, ever allow yourself to be convinced that people are somehow going to choose what you're saying over their own freedom. Life just doesn't work that way. So, when we get upset as people, communication degenerates from a tool of understanding into a tool of control. Okay, so let's define what communication is and what communication isn't. Talking is when you speak with a focus only on what you're saying. It's simply the act of speaking, generating sounds, right? Putting your vocal cords to work. That's what talking literally is. It involves producing words and sentences, but it doesn't always mean that the message is being understood or even that there was an exchange of ideas. So that's talking. Communication is when you speak with the audience's reception in mind. Communication involves not just words, but also non-verbal cues like body language. Ladies, you know, some of y'all got this face, right? And like y'all say, I know woman, so y'all got to help me out. But y'all say that this is just the way your face is. And that's cool. If that's the way your face is, that's the way your face is. But you just need to understand that the way your face is right now, kind of making me feel like I shouldn't say some things. So I'm not saying you need to overly edit yourself for people. But what I am saying, ladies, is you need to become aware of how your presence, your body language, and your energy might be affecting the way people are dealing with you. You know, y'all said who like to talk about haters? Where it's like y'all always seem to be against haters in your life. I ain't saying they real or not, but I'm saying ask yourself a question like, what if these haters I'm generating in my mind is nothing more than the byproduct of something I can't see in myself, right? So this means that in order to communicate effectively with your partner, you have to become inconvenienced by the way they best receive information. If you to speak Spanish and he to speak English, what you speaking to that man in Spanish for, right? No habla inglés, man. No words. It just don't work. And so what happens many times is we continue to double down on that. We say things like, listen, I'm being clear, I'm being concise, but clarity doesn't mean that you're being received. Okay, I'll say that again. Clarity doesn't mean that you're being received. So you could speak the best Spanish to that man, the clearest Spanish to that man. But if that man is not a Spanish speaker, then it doesn't matter how clearly you speak Spanish to him. He won't receive it, right? I want y'all to see how sometimes we are agents to our own demise, that we are our own ops. right? Because I think so many times what happens is we continue to expect this person to receive this information better because I'm doing a good job in being clear. But listen, I speak to my TV when the Cowboys are playing, and that means I told a lot of cut up. But I'm working through it. I'm a therapist. I'll just read my notes. And I talk to the TV. But me talking to the TV don't mean the TV listening. Me telling Dak Prescott what to do with the ball doesn't mean he will listen. Me talking to my dog doesn't mean my dog will listen. Me talking to my daughter doesn't mean my daughter will listen. So if I say that I want to communicate, I'm actually having to communicate to this person with them in mind. So love can't flow when we communicate to intimidate. Love cannot flow when we find fault or use words to make other people feel guilty. That's a misuse of communication. And see, I don't think a lot of us have ever really sat down and asked ourselves, like, what does it really mean to communicate? And if you are a communicator, you will understand that this isn't easy. Waking up and having to think more about your audience than what you're saying, that's no easy task. Like, I got a whole crew in here helping me to communicate, right? And like, y'all can't see it right now. But in order for me to generate this message to y'all in a way that y'all could receive it, I had to take thoughts and ideas that were in my head, and I kind of had to sit with my audience and say, what's the best way I can get this thought to the ears of the people who need to hear it and actually make it impactful and meaningful that they can take it, like it, and share it on social medias and even use it to change their lives. I could make a point and I could just turn this whole podcast into just Harrison saying what he want to say, right? But that ain't what this is. I am sincerely invested in helping professional women be better versions of themselves to have more relational success. And so even as a therapist, someone who's been doing this for over a decade, I've been having to sit with these thoughts and ideas and figuring out, am I communicating effectively? So when it comes to your relationships, ladies, stop talking to that man like he's a gal, okay? He ain't no gal, but if you continue to treat him like a gal, don't get mad when he start carrying on like one. I mean you, no, not you, you. Yes. So folks, this is communication, okay? I wanted this episode to really break down what the differences are between talking and communication so that we can understand you having love for that person doesn't mean that you know what you're doing, okay? Having love is not some kind of insurance policy against the work that we have to do. And yes, you're successful. Yes, you deserve a soft life. Yes, you deserve to have all of your dreams and all of your desires. True. But even though that's true, you don't get away from doing the work. No one is so entitled, no one is so deserving that they can get out of jail free without having to do the relational work. And so I just hope that this episode today could have really been something you glean from, ladies, something that you can really take back to your friends, your aunts, your nieces, your friends, your community of sisters, so that we can all help one another to be better versions of ourselves. Thank you. And that's a wrap on this episode of The Relational Reset. I hope you got some real gems to take with you on this journey to thriving in love. Remember, relationships aren't about winning. They're about experiencing. They're about growing. They're about enjoying the process. So if you found today's episode helpful, or if it called you out just a little bit, do me a favor and subscribe, okay? I want you to leave a review, like, share, and comment. Give it to someone. Give it to a friend who really needs to hear this because we need to keep this conversation going. If you want, you can follow me on socials at ht4real, or you can visit my website at harrisonhelps.com for more insights, laughs, and the occasional tough love. And don't forget, use the hashtag HarrisonHelps when sharing your thoughts because I want to hear from you, okay? So until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and most importantly, enjoy the ride. I'll see y'all in the next episode.